Hey, welcome back. I'm here with a new video. Today we're riding the World Championships course. It's starting in Beek and finishing in Maastricht, and that happens to be exactly my backyard. So here's a view from a local rider on the World Championships course. Let's go. We are only 10 days before the start of the World Championships gravel here in Beek in Limburg. And I'm standing now on the final descent towards Beek. You will ride this descent 3 times if you're doing the long route, 2 times if you're doing the short route, and only 1 time if you're doing the shortest route. And as you can see, the course and the conditions are pretty dry. It has been bone dry the last couple of days, weeks. Has been raining a little bit, but not too much here. It's been mostly sunny, dry conditions. It will be between 10 and 15 degrees on the day of the gravel championships. So my prediction for the course conditions will be that it will be pretty dry. The terrain will be loose, and yeah, as you can see, it's all practically pretty hard and loose gravel. But before we dive into the conditions and the terrain, let's first have a look at 9 points on this course where you should be aware of. But before we dive into these 9 critical points, let's first have a look at this year's course. This year's course consists of a base loop of 50 kilometers. But to ensure a safe start, the first 6 kilometers are being held on the main road out of Beek. Therefore, if you pass the start line for the first time and you enter the base loop again, you will have a different first 6 kilometers compared to the ones starting the race. For the last 20 kilometers you will be diverted from the base loop to continue on your way to the finish line in Maastricht. And depending on your category, you might only be riding the base loop 1 time, 2 times or 3 times, resulting in a final distance of 80, 130 or 180 kilometers. Now let's dive straight into the 9 critical points of this course. The first critical point is directly after the start. It's called Adsteeg. The Adsteeg is the climb out of the city center of Beek. It's a well-maintained road, it's wide, it doesn't look like that much of elevation, with only around 30 meters of elevation in this climb, but this climb will make sure that the field is broken up at the top of the climb, which we see right here. Then we will continue to ride 6 kilometers on this wide road until we enter the first gravel sector of the day. And as you can see, the gravel starts with a corner coming into it. There's no reason to really panic here, because it's still pretty flat, pretty wide. There is enough room to pass people here, but still it's a point that you should be aware of. The gravel roads in this particular area of Limburg are pretty wide, they're pretty fast. They do have a lot of corners, so if I can give you one piece of advice, always stay in front of the group. And of course that rule is especially important when you're entering descents. There aren't many real technical descents, but one of the descents that you should be aware of is the one that comes after 9 kilometers in this course towards a little town called Waterval. And why this descent is important is because it comes really early in the race, but also because there are some areas in this descent which can be a little bit sketchy. You just saw me bumping over that little incline in the road, but just before there was a really sharp right hand turn with a off-camber corner where I think if you have the incorrect tire pressure, you could be sliding away, so pay attention for any riders in front of you who have a little bit less control in those corners. After the descent, it's straight into the next climb of this course. It's called the Visweg. It starts with gravel and then it goes into a steeper tarmac section where we are on now. And you can see the incline on the screen on the right hand side. It's between 8, 9, 10, 11% at some points. It's a little bit steeper at the end. And as we are crossing the intersection here, we are almost at the top of this climb and we are heading back down into the descent on the gravel. Nothing too technical here until we are almost at the bottom here and we are crossing that dip there, which can be a little bit tricky, especially when it has rained. That's just something to pay attention to. Now there's not really any place to take a breath here as we are already entering the next climb, the Stevensweg. This will also be the cutoff for the final lap, so when you are approaching the top of this nasty little kicker, you will be led off to the last 20 kilometers of the route. That is exactly on this point. You will not turn left but right here in the final lap. That will save you from this false flat section on top of the climb, which comes after that steep section. So this really hurts, and this is where you can make a difference in the race, especially in the second or third lap. Next up is the castle of Wijnandsrade, and why I included this part of the route in my list of critical points is because this is a perfect opportunity for people to watch, but also to give you bottles and for a feed zone. Since this is not an official feed zone, hopefully this will be a lot less packed with people than the other ones. And let's fast forward to kilometer 40 into the loop, the climb of the Diependaalseweg. I did not include this climb because it's so steep or technical, but it has a nasty surprise at the end of the climb. And with a nasty surprise, I don't mean that tree trunk that you just saw. They removed that from the route, so there are no more obstacles here. As you can see, it's a pretty fast climb, and that's not because I fast forwarded this, but because it's not very steep. But at the end, around this point in the climb, it starts to get a little bit more steep, and especially on the end, it's a pretty steep towards the top of this climb, and that's where you need to save your legs for, and especially because there is a nasty surprise after this climb. And that surprise is called the Roukuilsweg. It's steep, it's loose, it's pretty technical because of the loose terrain here. You can probably not stand on your pedals here, so it's really important to keep the grip on this section. And since you already covered a lot of climbs here, the legs will start to hurt, especially in the second or third lap. But the good thing is, when you have passed that tree, you also are on top of the last climb of the loop. And that's when we can start thinking about the descent towards Beek. The final descent into the city of Beek. It's still a lot of gravel going into the city. There's some loose stuff here, as you saw. As you can see, it's nothing to worry about again. It's pretty wide, it's pretty fast. There is not really anything that will hold you down here from doing another loop. The only thing that I can mention about this part is that it's pretty winding. As you can see, there's a lot of corners in this last bit, just before we are heading towards the start line. This is where the start boxes will be. We turn left here, and then this is where the start line will be. As we cross the start, we don't go right, we go straight ahead onto the gravel, and we set course towards another loop. And as I said in the beginning of this video, the first 6 kilometers of the second and third loop will be different from the ones that you did in the beginning of the race. But it's all like this, it's pretty easy and wide open gravel roads. And as we are done with our base loops, this is where we have the cutoff towards the city of Valkenburg. But we just don't touch Valkenburg, we head right towards Houten here. And after we have done this little detour in Houten, it's a lot of tarmac here on the start of our finish loop. We are heading towards the Dalemweg, but just before we head towards Dalem, we hit this really narrow gravel path, and at the end of this gravel path, the next surprise awaits us. It's the climb of the Bronsdalweg. It's the final climb of the day. After this climb, you will descend down to Maastricht and head towards the finish line. And why this climb is important is because it's a steep little kicker, and it already starts from the beginning here. It goes up to 16 to 17%, and as you can see, although it's tarmac, it's pretty rough tarmac. The good thing is you are entering it straight towards the climb, so you can enter with a lot of speed going into the climb, but it's a pretty long and steep climb. This one will definitely hurt the legs, and if the groups haven't split up by this point, this climb will make sure that the strongest people will only stay in front of the race. And don't think that the climb is over at this point. Yes, for sure the steepest part is behind you, but there is still a lot of climbing to go. It's more on the false flat side of things than the steep side, but still this will hurt a lot. And from those who have ridden Mardi Gras, you probably will recognize this part, as this was the final descent towards the finish line. And as we are entering on the tarmac here, this is where it really starts to flatten out, and this is basically where we hit the top of the climb and set course towards Maastricht, the finish line of the World Championships Gravel 2025. Alright, now lastly, let's have a quick talk about tires and bike setup. As I told you in the beginning of this video, the conditions will be dry, it will be medium heat, so it won't be too harsh for your material. But still, the terrain here is known for its bushes, and all of these bushes have these sharp thorns on them, as you can see here. And what they will do in this time of the year is cut all these bushes, and all the remains of these cuts and all the bushes and all these thorns will be left on the roads here. So what will happen if you ride through these? Of course you will get a puncture. So when it comes down to tires, I would say I would prefer a somewhat beefier tire, still fast rolling of course, but at least something that will give me some puncture protection. And one thing to always make sure in this area is to have enough tire sealant in your tires, just in case when you are riding through these thorns and you get a puncture, that it seals up nicely and you don't have any dried sealant in your tires or anything like that. And when it comes to tire width, tire tread, I would go for something fast rolling, as I said, and I would go for a tire that has at least 40 millimeters of width. So preferably I would go for something like a 45 millimeter tire. And that's pretty much it. I think if you have something like that, it's a pretty bulletproof setup that will get you at least across the finish line in Maastricht. Well, I hope you liked the video. I'm now going to have my final preparations before the race. I didn't do a lot of training, so it will be a hard race for me. I'm looking forward to ride through my own backyard here next week. Hopefully I will be a little bit faster than I'm now, but we'll see how that goes. See you guys in the next video. Bye.